the Stoner Spring and Kintner Spring area. Caves that would be most noteworthy to people there in that area would be on the northern side would be probably Dixie Schoolhouse Cave, and on the southern side would be Devil's Graveyard and Devil's Drapery Well. Those are kind of the high points on the ridges there, and so we kind of identified that we wanted to look at that. Dead in the middle of that, kind of straight out, is Paul Wiseman Cave, and Watermelon Horror Hole is right in the middle at the bluffs there. But Paul Wiseman is kind of inland about 3/4 of a mile or so. So that was another area of interest. So May, June, in July, we were contacting landowners, gaining permissions, kind of doing a little walking and stomping around and trying to get permission to start pursuing this. So our intent was once again to kind of develop some other cave systems that could ultimately be connected into the Binkley Cave system. Obviously, this is a long-term objective and not something that we're going to just waltz right into. This is out of the ICS database, and it shows the cave locations down in the area. This, let's see if I can get my cursor here. So this area right in here is, this is Kintner Spring, this is Stoner Spring, this is Watermelon Horror Hole, and then you get up over here towards Devil's Graveyard and Devil's Drapery Well and so forth. This over here is Paul Wiseman area, Paul Wiseman Cave and Prune Pit. And then over in this area is Dixie Schoolhouse Cave. So the Hanging Valley kind of goes from up here where Dixie Schoolhouse Cave is over to where Devil's Graveyard Cave is. And the center is right along here, like I said. Stoner Spring almost draws a direct straight line to Paul Wiseman Cave and then up to the end of the Sump McLean River. Is my transmission coming through okay?
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Yes, so.
You're occasionally
right.
freezing up, but not much.
All right. So Paul Wiseman was really one of the first caves that we decided to visit. Dave Black had mapped the cave back in the 80s with the Crawford Harrison Underground Group. And they were pretty excited about it initially, and they got down to the bottom of it and found a nice stream river down there, but were quickly stopped by some breakdown in the stream and the constriction that didn't let them go any further downstream. And so they named it Disappointment River. We were very interested in this area because of, once again, its location, but also that there was water. And we felt like, you know, where there was water in that area, particularly in the center, that it probably, if any sizable amount, would be going into the aquifer that was feeding both Stoner Spring and Kintner Spring. So this is Paul Wiseman down here. I mean, he's just an incredibly giving and generous human being. And he just makes us welcome. He's basically given us free reign access to his property. We just kind of have to stop by the house and let him know we're there. We've given him pictures and everything, what we're doing. He keeps them on his front table and shows them off to anybody that comes to his house. He's really proud of his cave and what's going on, and just a nice landowner you could hope for. So this is the opening to Paul Wiseman Cave. Merrill's grandfather, or Merrill's father, is the namesake for this cave. As you can see, there's an old hemp rope that goes down into it. You don't really need it. A hand line can be handy, but it's not essential. So we went on, Marion and I were there that day, and we went all the way to the bottom of Paul Wiseman Cave, to what was known as Disappointment River. I will tell you that the cave itself was pretty sporting. There's some squeezes and pushes and climbs downs that were rather interesting. But the stream was relatively sizable, and we were not quite as disappointed as what Dave Black had been when we got there, because we got to the back of the breakdown pile and we were able to hammer some rock out of the way and start to move forward into an area that we thought could be further mined out. So we planned another trip for the 7th of July to see if we could push forward with the dig. So Marion, Tony Akers, Shane Miles, Greg McNamara, and I returned to push the river. And we gained nearly 100 feet of some large breakdown filled stream passage to a point where the water lowered in the crawl around large chunks of breakdown. We could have potentially continued to push forward, but it would have been quite a mining project. And we were trying to still get a sense of the region that we were working in. So we noted the lead, and we decided it was time to move on. We were still doing other project work in Binkley's Cave proper. And so the work that we were doing here along with the Stoner Kintner Spring project was also in addition to that. Dixie Schoolhouse Cave, also originally part of the Paul Wiseman property, now owned by Merrill Wiseman's brother Carl, another endearing individual and generous, is an amazing karst feature. Huge open entrance, fairly close to the road, at the top, at the north side of the Hanging Valley. And it just feels like that there's big cave just underneath some of that rock somewhere back there. And its easy accessibility made it an obvious place where we would be returning to regularly. We were still kind of just scoping things out here. The only map that was available of the cave was done in 1976 by the Indiana University Spelunking Club. It was a fairly accurate hand-drawn map, but there were a number of things that were left off the map that warranted a bit of resurvey, and we found a nice dig lead in the back. Chris Bell had indicated to me that there was substantial air movement in the cave, and so we were able to chase some of that air down and started working a dig, and it was definitely something that we were going to spend time throughout the year to continue to return to. And then our good old friend, Watermelon Horror Hole. Now, Watermelon Horror Hole is a cave entrance that got its name from Dave Black surveying it and cooling a watermelon at the entrance while they were working to survey it. And the horror hole part comes from the fact that it's really a jumble of breakdown to get down into a stream passage. The group that Dave was with was stymied at a breakdown room at the back of the lowest crawl down here, back in this area over here. At the end, there's a breakdown room, and they stopped there. We were able to push forward and move on to our dig at the end of the cave there, and but it was the air was kind of diffuse and going into a number of places, but it was so strong it would blow a flagging tape at 90-degree angle. I mean, this is probably one of the windiest caves in Indiana that I'm aware of that is not known, does not connect to known cave at this point in time. So we've done numerous trips there, and so we were obviously considering this cave as well as anything else in and around it. This is nearly dead center between Stoner Spring and Kintner Spring along that Hanging Valley drainage area. So Watermelon Horror Hole and the numerous holes on the area, and there's a lot of holes that are in between Stoner Spring and Kintner Spring. I mean, it's really just one massive spring seep out of the side of the hill. They're essentially wet weather overflow springs that when both Kintner Spring and Stoner Spring fill up, the water starts to run out them. Once again, on the map here on the right, you can kind of see where we're at. There's Stoner Spring, or there's Kintner Spring, I mean. There's Stoner Spring. This is Indian Creek right along here. And this is Watermelon Horror Hole. And that line going there is 900 feet of cave that have been surveyed with Watermelon Horror Hole. it ends up in a ravine that it probably contributes to the breakdown or the difficulty to continue to move forward with the cave. So we kept looking at the numerous digs that we had, and we really needed a focus. Once again, this whole area here, not just this area and not just this area, but also this area has caves that are attributed to hydrologically connected to the Wild Wild West. Not to mention that Blowing Hole proper has been connected to Harrison Springs, and Chris Bell has found a new cave over in this area that we believe has potential to be connected into the cave system itself. So when you start looking at the region as a whole, it's really a supermassive area for potential cave development. And it's once again, the Mitchell Plateau equates to the Penny Royale down in Mammoth Cave area. And from my understanding, is actually the same chunk of bedrock, or at least a big chunk of it is. And so the likelihood of a supermassive cave system like Roppel or something like that is very likely. So I think, we're looking well in excess of a 100-mile cave system ultimately. Currently, we're standing at 45 miles. So we just, trying to figure out where to go next and how to keep developing the cave and not just going to the same old places. We have digs everywhere. So on December 1st, 2020, I went with Gary Roberson back down by Watermelon Horror Hole. Just if you were looking at Watermelon Horror Hole on that map, Kentner Spring to your left, Stoner Spring to the right, just the other side of the ravine where Watermelon Horror Hole breaks down was another hole that we'd looked at before, but Gary had been there earlier in the week, and it was really our first cold weather, and said that he thought that there was some really amazing smoke there. Well, we set off a big smoke bomb, and all the smoke was sucked immediately into it. This is a 2-minute smoke bomb, by the way, and it took everything that we could give it. We set off 2 or 3 of these, and nothing came back out. So to say we were excited is an understatement. We felt like we needed to get onto this as quickly as possible. We also went over and looked at Stoner Spring because the water levels were pretty high, and we wanted to see, if it's sucking air, just how much water Stoner Spring and Kentner Spring could take and still provide open air movement without a sump. And so if you look here in the picture, you can see the water welling up at the back head wall of Stoner Spring. This alluvial spring moves a tremendous amount of water. It and Kentner Spring and the other high water springs flow ultimately into one stream. And really, when you combine all the water, they all flow together before they enter Indian Creek. I mean, it's got to be one of the largest series of springs in the state of Indiana. I'd say ranks right up there with Harrison Springs and so forth. Anyway, we felt like that this big location was something that we needed to pursue, and right away before the cold weather and the wet weather set in. This is Kentner Spring in a high water event. You can see the muddy water coming out of the spring back there. The water really is once again alluvial and pushes up out of the gravel. The place there with the muck over the top of it is an area we generally have to drive over to get to the other field. So when the spring reaches capacity, the water actually starts coming over the surface down a drainage area there. So it's my opinion that once Kentner Spring backs up and reaches its capacity is when the fingers like Watermelon Horror Hole and the other dig lead that we're looking at start to flow and the water starts coming out them. This is the very dig lead that we were just blowing smoke, or that was just sucking smoke in during high water. It's not a huge area. Once again, if you remember the size of my body sitting there next to it, it pours a lot of water out, but it wasn't a huge hole at the time. We determined that we need to move as quickly as possible, and Gary located an excavator that we could get. We tried digging in the area before with an excavator, but we only had a short period of time, and we really ran out of time before we were able to do what we needed to do. We were able to get a winter rate, and Gary also committed to funding anything above and beyond what I could raise from the ISS group itself. So as I said, we estimated that the cost for the entire project would be somewhere in the $5,000 to $7,000 range to rent the backhoe, put in some sort of entrance, gate it, and any other additional costs, fuel, such and such. We had 2 operators that had committed to give their time. We had a really tenacious operator that had been working for about 40 years in the area and was also a friend of the landowner, which was an excellent plus. He and Larry and Butch were buddies and had done a number of construction jobs together throughout the years and had lots of great stories to share. Ian Newton also, that's Fig Newton, or Richard Newton's son, also agreed to operate. He's also a very skilled operator, and we were really set to go. So what was really cool was in about 4 hours, contacting the ISS participants, we were able to raise about $4,500, and Gary gave the green light, and we had the big dig toy on the way and on site by December 23rd. We weren't going to dig this day, but we wanted to get ready for the 26th. We were in a window of good weather here that wasn't too cold yet, but cold enough and dry enough to go ahead and start moving in, but looked like some wet weather was in the 10-day forecast. And while we had the piece of equipment for a month, you just don't know what the end of December and January is going to bring in southern Indiana. Here's Larry offloading the machine as it's come in. And of course, here it is down an exceptionally small road, and we've gotten it here, but what do we do with the truck? I mean, he can't really go across the bridge at the end of the road. He's way too heavy, and we're just kind of scratching our heads. And Larry goes, "No problem, I got this." He goes in, picks up the back of the truck, takes the excavator, swivels it around, and off it goes. So Larry heads over to the dig site, and Butch had kind of given us a route that he wanted us to go into the woods, and he really gave us free rein with the dig here. He said, do whatever you need to do. He trusted Larry, and he was only concerned about his farm fields, and obviously we didn't want to tear up anything more than we had, but we really didn't know what it was going to take yet to do the dig. Larry kind of leveled out the pad and started digging a little bit. We're going, no, Larry, don't dig too much, maybe a little bit for prep work. But he's like, well, if I just take a couple scoops, we might be right into cave. And of course, we're chomping at the bit too, but we managed to rein ourselves in a little bit, and it was a huge tease, I have to tell you. We had one heck of a time keeping ourselves from just going forward, but we wanted to respect everybody who had contributed to the project and wait until the 26th. So, sorry, December 27th, I said the 26th. So on the 27th, we had a huge number of people show up throughout the day, including people from Butch's family. But the first thing I did was show off why we were here. And once again, here's smoke on the day of the dig. You can see a little bit of frost around everything. So it's a pretty cold day, but I'm holding the smoke bomb, about a foot away from the hole, and everything's just going right in it. So we were trying to show what all the fuss was about. People were respectful and, hanging out in their family groups and distancing, but everybody was pretty excited, and Larry had quite an audience, and he showed off a good little bit here. He was, everybody was just kind of each bucket full thinking, will the next one be the one that'll open up to gaping borehole? I mean, obviously that was the hope, but how things actually work. So hopefully some of this video is coming through. If you look at that head wall up above the bucket there, that becomes ultimately the top of the cave dig. So keep an eye on that throughout the scenes as we go forward. So as we got into it, you know, we never really had a gaping borehole, but we did find this big seam of frost fractured rock. The seam flowed all the way out to where we were digging. So it was just this vein of fractured rock. So the amount of cold air being sucked back into this area was just tremendous. We were pretty excited. And then all of a sudden we hit some water. And as you can see, Larry's had to dig that head wall even further back. So finally, after digging it some more, we've got obviously some big pile of rocks there and everything. And on the left-hand side, you can see there's Gary Roberson and Richard Newton. And there I am all the way back there doing a smoke test at the head wall. And, you know, Larry's checked all the rocks and he thinks it's pretty stable. And I was in the right place with the smoke, and I guess I was in the right place altogether. But if you look on the right-hand side of the picture screen over on the second side, you'll notice that there's a big chunk of rock that's missing that's there in the left-hand side. And while I was down there doing a smoke test, I got splattered by a huge, massive fall of rock. And it came a little closer than I liked. And because at that point in time, we knew that we were going to, one, have to rick back the upper overhang further, and we were going to be putting a culvert entrance in as soon as possible. So we hit the water. We were pretty sure that that was base level with watermelon horror hole in the stream passage before you go up into the breakdown room, if you remember the map. And that was a low but wide stream passage. And so we thought that we would looking at something like that eventually here. We also thought we could see some larger openings behind the circled in yellow area the arrow's pointing to. That blue stain on the right-hand wall was actually from a smoke bomb. Another one that we set off, and once again, sucked all the smoke right into that very hole that's circled. So we felt like we needed to do something with this hole pretty quickly. Ian came back the next day and took over operating the excavator. He was very tenacious. He moved all the rock out from in front of the hole. And if you can see here, he's got some real skill. Watch this rock just fall out here. This is not an easy thing to do with an excavator bucket. If you've ever used a piece of equipment this big, have this kind of touch is very, very difficult. Some excavators have articulated buckets that also come up from the other 180 degrees. We didn't have one of those. We decided that this was a good enough lead that we needed to order a culvert. And by 11 a.m. the next day, we had a culvert there from a local supplier, and Larry offloaded it and we started laying pipe. The reason we were in such a hurry here is that the next day we were expecting some sizable rains, and we wanted to try and get our entrance that we'd already excavated secured and the pipe in place and bedded in, because we felt like we were going to be moving some pretty big water. We were looking at, 2.5, 3 inches of rain coming. So in short order, Larry had the pipe placed in, started packing in around it, and look at what he does with this bucket here. I mean, he places these rocks over the top and pushes them in. I mean, this is no easy task. This guy won national awards and competitions for putting tires over the top of telephone poles and stacking bricks with these excavator buckets. This guy was one of the best, and we were just super lucky to have him. So the whole time this is going on, this is Butch Kempner to the left of Gary Roberson, and they're sitting there looking at and watching, what Larry's doing. And on the right here, you can see just what Larry's done, packing all the rock in there to hold that pipe in there. And we're pretty excited with the product that Larry's produced, and we're hoping that it's going to hold. So instant entrance. And we finally got to go safely back into the head wall and take a look at. And we felt like that this area right in here, we could see pretty far back in, and if we could just move these stones right here, we would be able to start to move forward. Everybody wanted to take a look. You know, I got in, got my photo op. Gary got his photo op. And even Larry came in and took a look at the front of the head wall there. He thought we were crazy as hell, but he also thought it was pretty neat that we were going after it. Larry knew all the caves in the area, and he was from this region, and wealth of information about other possible digs and caves that we might want to pursue. So we now had what we thought was a viable permanent entrance into what we hoped was going to be, you know, the entrance to a cave system. And it's a good thing we put it there, because on the 30th, the 31st, the rains came and started to put our entrance to the test. And I tell you what, that water was flowing, and it was flowing from everywhere. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the water coming out of the wall. And that's that seam of frost-fractured rock that we followed all the way down. In fact, it even wells up out of the floor here of the drainage. So that's a lot of water pressure back behind there. And this was now becoming a much larger waterway for the area than it had been before. Our little wet weather spring now was probably moving as much water as Watermelon Horror Hole, which is on the right-hand side. Obviously, they're only separated by about 100 feet. So when you add that amount of water together, along with what's coming out of Kentner Spring, just in that area, and what must be coming out of Stoner Spring, that's a pretty massive amount of water. So by January 2nd, the water was still up, but I was able to kind of get into the pipe and ascertain what had happened with our dig. And at the back of the head wall, I could see that the water was flowing up primarily from the base of the breakdown, but up in the top portion where we were hoping to be able to dig out and climb over, there was not nearly as much water, and it was already dropping, and there appeared to be some air movement. Within 24 hours from that, there was essentially no water coming out of the entrance anymore. So what had been a raging water torrent was now really just a little bit of pooled water. Once again, this speaks to the fact that once the water drops down below a certain level, and Kempner Spring and Stoner Spring are taking it all, that these overflow systems actually pretty much dry up and stop running. That's good news for us cavers. If we're back in there, it gives us a little bit more time if we actually can get in there, and nice thing to learn. We did a little smoke test just to make sure that it wasn't sumped out further back in. And as you can see, smoke goes right back in. We just set off a small one here and sucked right on in, and it's gone. So January 5th, John Benton, Gary Robertson, and I went back in the pipe and moved to the head wall and began to work on it. We took a famous ISS relic from the Millennium dig called the Claw that was put together by Terry Creighton, and it became our primary instrument for reaching in and pulling out rock until we felt like we had the area stabilized enough to actually be able to start climbing into it. Here's a little video of what the inside looked like. We had to hand pack the back of the pipe, and these old guys and I being one of the old guys too now, we moved a lot of rock that day. You can still see some sunlight over the top of the pipe, but we did a lot of packing in and getting ready to turn around here if you don't get seasick and look at the frontier. And there it is. We've actually got a passage. It doesn't look, it's hard to see here, but that goes back about 30 feet. We were pretty stoked. Site work continued the next day as we got ready for a push trip on the 9th, and we continued to try and dig things out hands and knees and as far as we could. And then on one of the coldest days of the year, on a wetsuit required affair, a dig push survey trip was scheduled, and participants included a hardy group: Greg and Val McNamara, Joy Bays, Mark Matthews, Gary Robertson, Nick Anderson, Marion Akers, Shane Miles, myself, along with visitors from Butch's family, came to watch us crazy cavers as we tried to open up the cave and see what it was doing. Here's Gary and Mark Matthews outside of the entrance, taking a momentary break, and I guarantee it was only a moment, because if you look to the right-hand side, you see piles of rock. We were moving sled after sled of rock and debris out of the drainage pipe from the frontier, and ultimately we had several tons of rock moved out. Here's the inside, that area that you were looking at before. It's low, but it kept getting bigger, and it was moving back to a head wall that moved a lot of air. Conditions were breezy and a bit grim, but everybody was pretty excited, especially when they saw the air. So that's just my breath there. Look at it go by. So, and it's cold, cold, cold in there. You know, it's sucking so much air. We got it big enough in areas that people could stand up, or set up at least. And, you know, it wasn't stand up here, but it was definitely set up. And we employed all of the state-of-the-art techniques that we have at our disposal to make rocks and big rocks into small rocks, and increase the size of passages and stabilize areas. And we had to use all of our digging skills here, but we kept moving forward, and using hand tools and other means of persuasion, we were able to finally get to the back of the head wall and start to look down an opening where all the air was heading. And it went down this little squeeze that ultimately I made bigger, but this was what was on the other side. Finally, we broke through into a stream passage, a little bit smaller than what we'd seen in Watermelon Horror Hole, but it's pooled water and not flowing, but something that you could actually crawl in. So we were incredibly excited. And it looked like we could keep crawling, but there was one thing. So yeah, we were going to get wet, and we could maybe go another 50 feet, but as always, it wasn't going to be easy. So another survey trip was planned for the following week in the January 16th, and it would be a wetsuit survey push trip. And things looked promising, and we thought we were on our way, but Binkley's always has some surprises for you. So in a little bit over 3 weeks' time, a small hole that sucked air was now officially a cave, and we were 100 feet at the furthest point of penetration from where we had started. Obviously, the hope was to push the cave and connect to the primary drainage feeding the area, which would be Kintner and Stoner Springs and the aquifer underneath. Shane Miles, Greg and Val McNamara, Joe Kinder, Nick Anderson, and myself returned the 16th to find out just what was going on. And we got there, and it was frigid. It had been the coldest week in between. We had icicles in the front of the entrance there, and the temperatures were horrific. The water in the pooled area was near freezing, and it was definitely in the 30s, maybe upper 30-degree weather, but it was much colder than cave water would normally be. And the cave the water and the cold would actually prove to be more challenging than the dig had been. water crawl proved in the 50 feet that we could reverse to be ear dipper in some places, having to move around large chunks of breakdown. While generally getting larger, the passage was filled with these chunks, and you had to kind of go in the water completely to get around them. Some of them we were able to move out by hand, but others that we couldn't. And ultimately, efforts were halted because of the cold. I have to say that this was one time, probably the coldest I've ever been in my life, being in the back of this water here. And I was never so happy to get out of water ever. Nick Anderson had a wonderful video that he took at the frontier. And it looks like if we can move and blast some rocks, bring them down, that we can keep going. And the passage is getting bigger and the air is just tremendous. The video was over a gig, and I just didn't, I tried loading it in and it was shutting things down. So you just get to look at the picture. So anyway, we felt like that we were kind of going to be on hold here for a little bit. So the status of the dig was that while we were stymied by the cold water and setback, the way forward was still considered possible. But we were going to need to employ the greatest tool of all, and the one that's most difficult to use, which is patience. And we're not always so good at using it, but it was the only one we had at the moment. We needed to wait for warmer weather, and we needed to also probably employ a submersible pump to help lower the pool of water so that we could more easily get into the rocks and deal with them. And we also needed to install a gate at the entrance. So while we were still very excited about the dig, we felt like that we had to kind of wait until spring, right about now, except that the only caveat that the landowners really put on us was that we wait until after turkey season. So that's what we are doing. And so the first part of May, we will be back at the dig. So we went back and started looking again in the Hanging Valley while it was still cold. On these snow-covered days, Gary and I took a few trips out, and this is the Hanging Valley. I'm closer towards the top of the ridge over Stoner Spring, Kintner Spring, looking towards Paul Wiseman here. And then the hills in the background are the upper part of that Hanging Valley. Paul Wiseman Cave is about 3/4 of a mile from where we are, straight line distance. The number of sinkholes in this area are just amazing, and almost all of them have been filled for agricultural purposes and old homesteads and so forth. So no telling how many entrances into the aquifer have already been lost. And that's also occurring up over the main cave area too, with development and so forth, and at an accelerated rate. So time is of an essence to do this exploration, and we're trying to get some of that done. So we decided to return to Paul Wiseman. Once again, when you look at Kintner Spring and Stoner Spring, Watermelon Horror Hole, and Butch's Dig, they're all kind of converging in on Paul Wiseman. And it seems to be the area right around it seems to be the nexus of where the aquifer may be going. So we decided to go back there. And we did a smoke test, and take a look at this. This is all the air going down into Paul Wiseman from the entrance. I mean, once again, we'd been at Disappointment River and we're stopped by the water, but something's open somewhere in this cave. This kind of air just doesn't happen with any hole. And we decided that we need to go back in there and figure out where it was. So smoke bombs in hand, we headed back towards Paul Wiseman on a trip. And here's Aida Ferrara getting ready to go into the cave, the entrance there. She is hanging on the crappy caving rope here. We did install some nicer ropes in some treacherous areas inside the cave. When we went in there, I went ahead and went forward to the front of the Disappointment River where we'd stopped digging and started setting off smoke bombs to try and ascertain where the smoke was going. And Marion Akers started some additional sketching and surveying because we found that there was, once again, some more passage and detail that needed to be added to the original map, as well as, the other survey that we'd already conducted on the dig at the end of Disappointment River.
Yeah, I'll add that Dave Black gave me his notes to this cave. So I've been able to use his original data and add to it.
It was a wonderful map, and it's only getting better. So once again, this time the cold was actually our friend, and instead of stopping us, it kind of helped us. We did kind of run into another little issue, but it wasn't the cold. So we decided that what we found was that the smoke was not, this air was not going downstream, was actually going upstream. And all of that smoke, and it was a tremendous amount of smoke, as you saw going in the entrance, was actually going upstream in the passages. So we decided to return to the cave on the following weekend. And this is a trip photo prior to going into the cave that day. And Merrill Weissman is there. He joined us for a little photo op. And once again, he's just such a great guy. I mean, the people down in this area are just amazingly welcoming to us. And once again, it just floors me how excited they are at what we do, and the joy that they get living vicariously through our efforts, and in a sense, they get to go caving with us. So we got in there and we rigged a new route down back to the stream, down the treacherous climb. And what we found was that what was mostly dry just a week before was now somewhat submerged. So once again, we were thwarted. But we were able to move forward some with the dig, and the air was still very strong. We knew where we needed to go, but we were once again going to have to return when water levels were lower. And so once again, patience seemed to be the word of the hour and the tool of the moment. And we're a persistent group, though, and we're going to keep moving forward. This is the new map, or the new version of Paul Wiseman Cave that Marion's currently working on. It's in progress right now. You can see she's added a number of wonderful cross sections here on the left-hand side. There's also additional survey that's been added, particularly back here where we pushed beyond where Dave Black and his group had. And also the profile here will be showing the upstream area, as well as further detail of actually where the air is going down the side passages here. This is going to be key and crucial to generations coming forward. Even if we don't get through, eventually somebody will. There's just too much air. There's got to be a lot of cave here. And it doesn't matter that's going upstream. That's still kind of heading north and east. And it's actually in a good direction for the cave and the aquifer that we're looking for. And there's no reason why we can't, we're nearly 100 feet below the surface of the cave. There's no reason why we can't intersect some really large passage that drops down. So we're still really excited about this cave. We also went back to Dixie Schoolhouse. The same day we checked Paul Wiseman Cave, Gary and I checked Dixie Schoolhouse Cave, and it too moved a tremendous amount of smoke. I mean, we don't know how all this air, where it's going. Everything sucks in the winter and nothing seems to blow. It doesn't matter where we go except for Binkley Pit and Dewey Eckert Hole, and Guy Stover used to blow, but now it sucks too. No other, there should be a massive steam plume somewhere, but there's not. And so we just can't find it. And, the theory is that it's just diffused through a number of really small holes throughout the sinkhole plain. But my God, we sure don't see them. So anyway, we went back to Dixie Schoolhouse because it took 3 of those big smoke bombs and it went right back down the dig in the back of the cave. This is looking out from the bottom of Dixie Schoolhouse Cave up to the exterior. Beautiful, beautiful cave, really neat, a lot of history there. The kids used to come during recess and come into the cave, but there's really no graffiti on the cave except for one very little small spot that I'll show you here in a minute. So this is the dig lead that we're working at, and it's a really interesting area. there's kind of a fault that appears to be right at the convergence of bedrock right here. And we're following that fault down, and about 20 feet down now at this point in time. The interesting thing is, again, it's a fault. So the rock is not the most stable, but it's also where all the air is going. And flagging tape rustles through here pretty darn strongly too. And so this is going to continue to be a priority for us. And it's an easy thing to work, particularly with the older ISS Vanguard and so forth. So we will be keep going back there. John Benton, you know, taking a moment, deep in thought here, or ready to assist. Just a great photo, classic. And here were the rocks I was talking about. There was one little niche that was back there where all the kids' signatures were from the schoolhouse. And it was either signature rock or the kissing rock, because there were a lot of loves and hearts and even a few expletive words, but very few, but lots of names, over and over names. And so you can just tell that there were years and years and years of things, kids that had been actually in this cave. And here's Miss Marion Acres here. The cave is once again a big cold sink, you know, because it's essentially one huge room. It just sucks all that air into it, and it's not normal cave temperature. It's, you know, maybe 10 degrees warmer than the exterior temperature, sometimes a little warmer. But Marion kept a smile on her face and kept surveying and photographing us while we were digging, and once again made a really nice new map of Dixie Schoolhouse Cave. If you remember the old line plot, which was very accurate actually, this one here certainly more accurately shows the way on what we think is, and that would be the dig area down here. This is where all the air goes down in this region. And once again, somebody someday, if it's not us, is going to find some big cave off of here. So the next things with the project here, we're to wait for warmer weather to push new digs, continue to push leaves in the main cave system. New passage was found in the Millennium by Nick Anderson and his crew, so work was still ongoing in the main cave system. We're trying to crack Binkley Pit while we still have it. Like I said, it's one of the only holes that we know that actually blows air, and it actually blows about 3/4 the amount of air that Dewey Eckert hole did, which yielded well over a mile of cave and connected back into the main entrance and the Millennium Passage and so forth. And of course, the biggest thing of all was to keep having fun, enjoying companionship above and under the sinkhole plain, mostly south of Corydon. So I just want to extend my thanks to everyone, especially the landowners. My gosh, they're just amazing. Without them, we don't have a project. Gary, you know, what can you say? Larry and Ian are operators, and the people who showed up for the trips, who came to watch, came to participate, the people who didn't but gave money and supported us. Thanks to all those, especially, you know, like I said, the landowners, Merrill Weissman, Butch Kentner. I think Butch Kentner and his family are nominees for Landowner of the Year here with the CIG, in my opinion. Carl Weissman, always Doug Henricks, who was the owner of the historic entrance, and June Fink, who owns Dewey Eckert Hall. Without them, there is no project, as I said. Thanks to all who gave money. I'm not going to mention them all. You can see them there, but we had over 20 people who gave money. A special thanks to the hardcore ISS who show up, whether we've got something good to explore or some miserable lead to dig or just walk around. You know, anybody will show up when there's something great to work on, but only the really hardcore come anytime. And Gary Robertson, he's in a class of his own. What can you say? You know, thanks for what he's given his life to this cave. And you just can't say enough about his commitment to as a life project. And thanks to everyone that's contributed pictures, videos, and maps to this presentation. And a special thanks to Marion Acres there. A lot of these pictures were her, as were, she did all the maps for this. And she's constantly working to make sure that we document and keep everything in order. And thanks, I want to thank everybody for letting me be part of such an awesome project. When I started the cave at 15 years of age, I'll be 60 next week. The cave was 17.89 miles long, my first trip, and now it's over 45 miles. I love this cave, and I love being in the cave most of all with everybody that goes in there. So this has made my life worth living and extra special. So this isn't the end. It's just more to come. Thank you. That's my show.
That was great.
Wonderful,
Yeah, bravo, Rand.
Very good.
wonderful
Thank you.
presentation.
Yeah.
You're lucky you didn't get your head
Well, I
crushed, buddy.
appreciate it. Mr. Close Call here. What
Yeah.
can I say?
Or hypothermia.
Yeah.
from
The hypothermia was worse.
Hypothermia, he was in his car for like an hour trying to heat back up.
Wow.
That's a lot of work, but it looks like some really exciting things ahead of you still. So looks like you're just that glimpse that keeps you going.
Yeah, I wish I could move
Well,
down there
it
and come
is,
to help.
and we feel like we're laying the groundwork for future generations. We know that probably any cave system we open up down there will take years to connect, but we know it's down there. It just has to be. And we want to start growing those other cave systems so that we can start moving towards a connection ultimately, so we can see that 100-mile system someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but in somebody's lifetime. And I just want to see 50 miles. So I'd be glad to answer any questions if anybody had any.
What is the chance that cauldron is gonna, or the what do they call it? The tube that you put in, did you think that was gonna get blown out? You have any, was it about 50-50 odds that it was gonna get blown out of there, or you think he had it in there
Well,
good?
I would, if we hadn't had the operator that we had there with Larry Asherbranner, I don't think we would probably have a viable entrance there. I was just back down there today and it's solid. I mean, everything's in good order and good shape, and we got to move some rocks that have kind of washed out from the floods that we've had there, but it's more open than it ever was, and it looks great. So we were concerned, but we had the best crew we could possibly have in our corps.
Are you in need of any help from any of the newer cavers we got coming out, or anybody that lives around that area? I know that rock is pretty heavy, and if you need to pull it out of that hole, that you might need some people that are, I have run into a few people that are new members that are really interested in helping out with stuff like that. You know,
Well,
doing some exploration.
I'll keep you apprised, Rich. We have a group Facebook page for our members here, but
Okay.
it'll be May and June before we really start going back to dig proper. But yes, we're going to have to haul some material out, and I'm always looking to try and indoctrinate some new people. Finkley's is a big meat grinder, and we always need fresh meat.
Or survey too, to learn how
We'll
to
let you know.
survey.
We'll let you know when tickets go on sale for that.
We charge by the pound.
Yeah.
Well, we've gotten some new skinny people moving into our group, so you might be
Good.
helpful.
So
Well, we
it
need
sounds,
some younger ones, you know.
it looks like that a lot of you're trying to find that space of that cave that's between, you know, McLean and the springs coming out on the river there. A lot of that type of area is, do you have any, I mean, I know you've got probably hundreds of leads actually in the cave now. Are you still, working on those too, or is it your priority shifting to finding the hidden cave there?
We're trying to do both simultaneously. And what I'm trying to do is to bring on some other groups of younger cavers. Nick Anderson, I kind of been working with him, and he and Seth Gillette and Ron Manning have been working an area back there that I showed them, and Marion and I took them back there, and we gave them a bunch of leads that need surveying and being pushed, and they've already discovered some additional passage back there. I've got more leads than I've got people or time.
And also that area in between McLean, you know, Binkley proper and Butch's Dig, that like Dixie Schoolhouse and Paul Wiseman both go down about 100 feet, you know, so they're at a good level to enter in to the bigger cave. So yes, there are leads. We're looking at all these points. You know, Chris Bell's gone back to a number of these points. There's still got to be other caves that could potentially be the entrance going in this. It's definitely. There's lots in this area.
Anything along that hanging valley between the McLean and those springs is game for getting back down into that aquifer. That aquifer has to run all the way from the downstream sump of the McLean all the way to those springs. So anything in that area, in my opinion, and I'm no geologist, you know, I've just been working in Binkley's Cave, but anything in that area is game. And once you get down over 100 feet, you're starting to get in some good territory, and there should be some caves to be found.
Cool. Sounds exciting. Anybody else have any other
It is
questions?
every time.
No, going. Well, thanks so much, Rand. That was awesome. You know, you lived up to your trailer. That was good. That trailer was pretty.
Oh, well,
cool.
thanks. I'm glad to hear that.
The trailer was awesome.
So it was worth the wait then, Rich, I guess.
Yeah, I would say if there's any way, do you have a YouTube page or anything like that you could upload some of those videos?
Not yet.
That's pretty easy to do, and you know,
We'll see what we can do.
yeah, I mean, it'd be neat to see because we
Well,
couldn't see
yeah.
those videos weren't those are pretty slowed down and they were pretty jagged, so we didn't get. To see.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
worried
yeah.
about that.
That's all right.
YouTube's a good option.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good option. We can make those. That
Yeah, and
sounds
then you could just
cool.
pop.
I was hoping maybe for an NSS presentation.
Yeah. Very good. Cool.
No, thanks a lot. I really
Thank you
appreciate it.
all. Thanks for having me.
That was great. Great. So,
I'm glad you liked it.
yeah, it was
Hey,
great to catch up.
everybody out there. I'm cool.
Yeah, good show,
Oh,
Rand.
good.
Good
Definitely.
job on the
Thanks,
maps,
Tony.
Marion, as always.
Yeah, thanks
Got
for you
great
guys doing all
people.
that work. I'm living vicariously
Yeah.
through you guys
Great to
too.
see you, Kelly.
Yeah. Well, come on down this way. We'll put something together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we never got to
We
see
got-
Scott's face. Is Scott still on?
No,
I
he
think
he left a little while ago.
He took off. Okay. Is that Scott Frosch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know he wants to go caving and see me. He wants to do more survey and stuff.
Yeah, we're working on a survey training especially for a lot of the newer people later, maybe in the fall or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So we're definitely
Yeah,
working on
let me
something.
know.
So
I can help with on-site training.
She's got skills.
yep,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah. Beautiful skills. Those are great. Your maps are wonderful.
Great maps.
Yep. They really are. And they can
Yeah.
blow up
Thanks,
huge, right?
guys.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
well, thanks for everybody stopping by. And next month we're going to play by ear, but next month we'll probably try to start going back in person. We'll probably still we'll do Facebook Live or something for an option. People don't want to meet, but we're getting real close to getting back together again. So that's something to look forward to.
Yay.
Hey.
So
Definitely.
Got to find out if the slippery noodle's open yet.
oh, I think it's open.
Is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it's
So great.
Good to
Thanks
see you,
everybody for stopping.
Dan.
All right. See y'all.
We'll see you. Bye.
Great.
Take care,
Thanks
y'all.
for the-
Bye.
having us. Thanks for what you
Bye.
do.
Take care, you guys.
Bye.
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 Love you guys.
ya.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See you, Danielle.
Love you all
Okay,
too.
Good to
Bye.
see you.
Take care.
Good to see you, Tony.
Good to
See ya.
meet you, Rich. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, Tony.
I
Great to
really-
have you, man.
Yeah, when you get back to the regular meetings, I'll never be able to make it.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna go ahead and Zoom them anyway.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so even if we meet out in a park someplace or back at the War Memorial,
Yeah.
we're gonna try to keep them so we keep retaining people and
It's great to
keep
stay in
around.
touch.
Yep, that'll be great.
Tomorrow night is the BIG meeting, the same way.
Yeah, who's presenting for that? Anybody?
I,
Do they
I'm not
do
sure.
presentations or they just meet?
They just meet. If you type that into Facebook, you can probably see who's presenting it. I don't know, Danielle, perhaps, or
Uh-huh.
but Sam will be there and his wife, and it'll be fun. You can find it,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and that's you have to go to those people to get the Zoom number. I'm just learning this myself. I even beat Danny here tonight.
Yeah, Danny in his laundry room. That's kills
Yeah,
me.
all right. And I had this for Anna.
That's where I wash my cave clothes.
Oh, you're in the cave clothes room, so nobody
Yeah.
goes in there except you now. That's funny.
Well,
All right, you guys. Well, I'm gonna go to bed, or I'm gonna
All
go eat. I haven't had dinner yet. I gotta go eat dinner and have
neither.
some relax. But maybe I'll stop by your place sometime, Tony.
You bet.
You got
Oh,
any good?
yeah.
Are there any really nice rental cabins around there?
I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, look
I don't-
around, see what you got around there. I know that the Nashville. Have you been to that music center before the COVID hit? You dig music at all?
The Little Opry or the Bill Monroe?
Well, they just built. Didn't they just build something that holds about 4,000 or 5,000 people or something?
Oh, I don't even know about that.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's like a more modern. Yeah, I don't think the old. I thought the old Opry burnt down or something.
No, that just got sold, and the new owners, they don't know what they're going to do with it.
Oh, okay, but
Bill
yeah, they
Monroe-
built a little sound. They had Art Garfunkel was there before the COVID, and
Oh.
all sorts of like medium acts were in there. And man, I bet you the acoustics is really beautiful in there.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, they're using it now for vaccinating people.
Oh, yes, I did read that.
Yeah, so it's a brand new facility. It looks like it's built for sound. So I love that's the kind of place I like to go. I don't like going to the big stadiums or anything like that. I like I'd
Well,
rather.
It's indoors.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. So it's going to take a little while before they have any music there, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Are you guys all vaccinated, or are you sitting
We're
it
all
out, or?
vaccinated, but we're acting as though we haven't really been anywhere for a year.
Yeah.
They put our groceries in the trunk. My wife Joanne has gone to Iowa to babysit. We bought a van. We bought a van so we could poop wouldn't have to stop in the rest areas. We have our own little homemade 5-gallon toilet in there.
Oh, neat.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I've been working in the woods. I just got in at least 2 years worth of firewood over the past 4 days. 5 days.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in my backyard too, just with playing with flowers and stuff. But
Yeah. Where do you live?
I live right in Indianapolis,
Oh,
Northwest.
God, you got to come down here.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful down there. I can't wait.
I'll keep my eyes open. I know of a great cabin, but they're going to sell it.
Oh yeah.
Didn't decide whether to rent or sell, and they're going to.
Ooh, well, there's no caves down there though, are there?
No.
Yeah, bummer. But it'd still be nice to have a cabin in the woods.
Yeah, but we're pretty close to a lot of caves.
Yeah, you definitely are.
You can go across the lake here, and what's that cave, Danny? The
Patton Cave.
Patton
Oh,
Cave,
yeah. Well, we're gonna have a bunch of Yeah, that May 1st thing is gonna be, there's gonna be some people hanging out there, I think, so.
Really. I did find a sinkhole down the road here, a nice rocky walled one. I
Yeah,
mean, it's more of a crevice, but I counted 17 televisions in there.
Oh,
Used to live there and work on TVs, and when he got a dead one, he'd throw it in the hole.
oh, Jesus.
I was gonna try to do something about that, but I couldn't find the guy. I haven't been there for a couple, 3 years, but that could use a clean out.
Yeah, have you ever heard of Salt's Cave? We've been,
Rings a bell.
yeah, it's right by Mitchell, Indiana. And it used to be owned by the Belskis or something like that, or something. I can't remember what their name was, but this guy, Dave, Johnson owns it now, and he's real nice. Lets anybody go in there that they want to, and there's a giant sinkhole there, and it was so I think they filled like 2 of those big train car sized
Yeah.
dumpsters with stuff, and they're still, they're down to the dirt now, but there's all sorts of stuff that's just buried in the dirt, and it's going to take, just shovels and everything to clear it out. But water's running through there and going into the cave, and there was a bunch of garbage got washed in there, but we've been cleaning that stuff out. And
You're working on it.
yeah, it's a beautiful cave. It really
maybe
is.
Maybe I should take some smoke to that television sinkhole, and blow it in there and see if there's any movement.
Yeah,
I didn't think of that.
yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, those smoke bombs are pretty cool.
At that time, there was some property for sale, so I have to be careful going down there because they're all kind of squeamish about, here, Anna,
Hey, hi, Tony.
well, that was a good presentation, and I sure appreciate the invite. I'll be there every month that it's on.
All right. Yeah, we'll let you know. Just keep an eye open. We'll keep doing it.
All right.
all right.
Danny,
Well, good night, everybody.
Good night, Rich.
Sweet dreams.
Good thing it was empty.
Great to see you guys.
Yep.
Hope to see you in person one of these days.
Yeah.
It's getting closer.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely getting closer. Later.
All right.
I'm ending you.
See you.
Dan and Anna, okay, you're ending us. I'll see you guys soon when I bring up your bench.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Cool.
All right.
Woodworker, huh?
A couple woodsmen.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys take care.
You can come sit on it.
I will.